What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Let's get started with Jon Jones being willing to wait until September for a heavyweight battle against Stipe Miocic. It's been 2 years. What's another few months? Jon Jones is saying that former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic won't be ready until September to fight, and that while he's willing to wait, he's not really happy about it. Jones has been eyeing up a heavyweight fight ever since he vacated his light heavyweight title back in 2020 in his last fight in February of that year. But since then, it's been drawback after drawback as Jones has been put on ice until a suitable fight could open up for his heavyweight debut. Earlier this month, we got word that Stipe was offered the chance to fight Jones as early as UFC 276 this coming July. But according to a tweet from Bones, it's likely going to be pushed back to September. This is what Jones stated in a tweet. Stipe is saying that he will be at his absolute peak in September. I'm disappointed but patient. I want the heavyweight GOAT at his absolute best. I'll wait until September. No excuses. The 34-year-old Jones has been talking about making the move up to heavyweight as early as 2013, but it's only now finally manifesting. Meanwhile, the 39-year-old Stipe is coming off a knockout loss to heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou that took place in March of last year, and while he has had time to recover from that, he's in no rush to return to the cage as his wife just gave birth to their second child. Are you excited to see this fight? And who do you think will win out of Stipe and Jones? Aljamain Sterling tells TJ Dillashaw to work on a stand-up with Henry Cejudo. The fight hasn't even been made yet, but it looks like the UFC is slated to put TJ Dillashaw as Aljamain Sterling's first official opponent for his undisputed bantamweight title. Sterling is coming off a split decision win over Peter Yan in the bantamweight title unification bout earlier this month at UFC 273. A fight that some believe Jan won. Still, after the fight, Sterling called out Dillashaw, who was in the building at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville that night. But since then, Dillashaw has denigrated Sterling's name, saying he's not up to par as a champion. This is what Dillashaw stated exactly in a recent interview with ESPN's Brett Okamoto.
I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's got some attributes. He wouldn't be where he's at without being good. But he's definitely not champion caliber. You know, the guys that I've fought already in the past, much better than he is, a lot more dangerous. Like there's no danger fighting Sterling. I mean, has he ever even knocked anyone out? I don't even know. I didn't look at his record. You know, it's a guy that you don't have to be really worried about.
Sterling clearly heard those comments and took to Twitter to issue this response. At TJ Dillashaw, who the have you beaten that is so much tougher than the guys I faced? This is Comedy Central. You should do stand-up with Henry Cejudo. He's your daddy after he sunned your needle. It's important to note that Dillashaw is the former bantamweight champion and has been looking to get back into the title shot picture after he served a 2-year suspension for testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. He came back last July to defeat Corey Sandhagen via split decision after 5 rounds and is now the likely challenger for the 135-pound strap. What do you make of this exchange? Do you agree with TJ that Sterling isn't dangerous, or do you believe he'll be surprised when he takes on Sterling? George St. Pierre says he's open to potential Khabib Nurmagomedov grappling match. For a few years, the debate around the bars among fight fans has been who would win in a fight, GSP or Khabib? While both men have poured cold water on the idea of ever meeting in the octagon in recent years, how about a grappling match? That's what MMA journalist James Lynch asked St. Pierre in a recent interview, in which they talked about all kinds of things related to the welterweight division. Khabib retired with an undefeated record of 29-0 in October of 2020. Just after submitting Justin Gaethje to defend his UFC lightweight title. It ended a dominant run for the Eagle, who finished his career with an emphatic win at the top of the heap in the fight world. He never even looked like he lost a round, let alone a fight. Meanwhile, GSP has been a 2-time welterweight champion and recorded the most consecutive title defenses in division history with 9. He's also avenged every loss he's ever had, and even won the middleweight title 5 years after retirement. Talk about a Khabib-GSP super fight has danced around the minds of fight fans for years, given that GSP and Khabib were similar in size and dominant in their respective careers. But now, with GSP and Khabib firmly saying no to a pro bout, what about a grappling match? This is how GSP responded to that question.
I don't know. I mean, listen, if it's well organized, and you know, if there is some event that are well organized, that are, you know, that it's a novelty fight, something good, maybe why not? I'm still in the entertainment world.
It's important to note that at one point, both men were actually keen on fighting each other in the octagon, but UFC President Dana White didn't seem to be on board. And now, enough time has passed that both sides are now saying it's better to not do that. but GSP was known for his incredible grappling skills in the cage, while Khabib was just as dominant, if not more so, with the way his grappling translated to the octagon. But what do you think? Are you keen to see a grappling match between these two? ADCC rule set, no points, submission only? Let us know what you'd like to see in the comments. Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on the latest fight news. Gilbert Burns saying Colby picks and chooses his fights and will pass on Khamzat Chimaev bout. After Belal Muhammad won via unanimous decision over Vicente Luque just over a week ago at UFC Vegas 51, he didn't call out welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. Instead, he called out Colby Covington, who remains in the top 5 of the division, and stated that Chaos picks and chooses his fights and hasn't fought anyone coming off wins in several years outside of his 2 title fight losses. Since then, Chael Sonnen has come out and stated that Colby will likely not accept a fight against Khamzat Chimaev, whom the promotion had been hoping to match Chaos up against following the Chechen Swede's win over Gilbert Burns at UFC 273. Because Colby is like a nephew to Uncle Chael, Sonnen padded his comments by saying that Colby likely felt insulted by the Khamzat matchup and didn't touch upon the fact that Colby does pick and choose his fights carefully against opponents who really aren't on a rocket ship to the title. Gilbert Burns is now joining both men in saying that Colby most likely will not accept the Khamzat fight, but unlike Sonnen, who is playing nice with Colby, he agrees with what Belal says, and that Colby picks guys coming off of losses. This is what Burns stated in a recent interview with MMA Junkie. Because lately, he's just getting the fights against guys that are coming off a loss and he picks and chooses. I just don't think he will do it. I don't know. It's a feeling that I have. He's not taking this fight. Why are people saying that Colby picks guys coming off losses? Because it's true. This has been the case for a lot of his opponents, except for Kamaru Usman, the champion. His last opponent, Jorge Masvidal, was coming off 2 losses before they met in the cage at UFC 272. Before that, Tyron Woodley had lost to Burns and Usman before he met Colby. Before that, Robbie Lawler lost 2 straight bouts to Ben Askren and Rafael dos Anjos before he fought Colby. In fact, RDA was the last non-champion Colby has faced that was coming off a win, and that was back in June 2018, almost 4 years ago. Still, Colby has been able to take Kamaru Usman to the brink in 2 classic welterweight wars for the title in 2019 and again in 2021 respectively, losing by TKO in the final round of the first fight and then by unanimous decision this past November. Meanwhile, Khamzat has been on a tear as he's undefeated and coming off a unanimous decision win over Gilbert Burns in the biggest fight of his career thus far. Do you agree with Gilbert Burns that Colby is not going to accept the fight against Khamzat? Does your opinion of Colby change if that were the case? And who do you think will fight Khamzat next? Joanna says she's up for a 5-round rematch against Zhang Weili at UFC 275. Perhaps the most highly anticipated rematch in all of women's MMA is set to take place in Singapore at UFC 275 this coming June, when Joanna Jędrzejczyk takes on Zhang Weili. This week, multiple reports stated that the rematch would be a 3-round fight instead of a 5-round bout, similar to the first fight. Joanna and Zhang fought in the 2020 Fight of the Year at UFC 248, where both women went the full 25 minutes for the UFC Women's Flyweight title. In the end, Weili walked away with the split decision win in what is now being regarded as the greatest ever women's MMA fight. The rematch on June 11th in Singapore will mark Joanna's first fight since that UFC 248 encounter, and it's going to be once again against Weili. Just a few weeks ago, after UFC 273 post-fight press conference, UFC President Dana White was asked whether this fight would be a 5-round battle or a 3-rounder. This is how he responded.
That's a good question. You want me to make it 5 rounds?
Could you please?
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Now this week, with MMA Fighting breaking the news that this UFC 275 clash will be a 3-round battle, Joanna took to Twitter to make it known that she's up for making this a 5-round war, and tagged Dana White and UFC in the tweet. This is what she said: "Should be 5 or not, I'm willing to do 5 rounds for my fans. Do you think this should be a 5-round battle? And who do you think will win this fight at UFC 275? Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.